Guys, this is a quick video to demonstrate the pull setup that I built for the triplane. I've got the radio turned on and a little temporary battery set up so that we could test everything out, and I keep it all powered up and the servos hooked up while we're tightening the wires to make sure we get the tensions right. I'll start at the front. You can see the servos. I built some rails and a tray in the area right behind the engine, which hook up to a couple of tiller arms. I did that so that I could keep good resolution at the servo with the really small throws that you're going to need on the elevator. For instance, stock throw in the manual, what they call for in the elevator, only works out to like 8 degrees. So if I turn down the servo throws that far to just drive the wires directly, you'd only be using like a small percentage of its travel. So I built those tiller arms. They're just old heavy-duty servo arms, and I pressed some collars into them, reamed them out, pressed some collars into them, and then used a piece of music wire for a mount, and then I drive those remotely. And if we move over here, if we peek in, you can see where the wires hook up, and they actually run through the cockpit. And let's see, from this angle you can see better. They run through the cockpit and actually above the floor in between the pilot's legs, which is semi-prototypical. And the real thing, for instance, the elevator wires would have been, hooked up directly to the joystick. So you'd actually look down and you'd see them on the floor moving. And you're going to see that for real in the model. Then they go through a guide, which is just some balsa wood with some pieces of nylon tube, and then from there angle up through the tail. This is kind of tricky. So the elevator has the double control horns. They use double wires for redundancy. I actually did that for real. So basically the upper pair of wires, they come together at the tiller arm and then they separate. Same thing with the lower wires. So you'll see there's actually 6 wires coming through the guide here, 2 for the rudder and 4 for the elevators. And I got 2 pairs and they cross over each other. So you've got both tiller arms moving in a horizontal plane over at the servo end, and the wires cross over each other, so at least for the elevator they become vertical back here. So you can see in the tail, here we have the elevator wires hooked up. So you can see the tensions, pretty decent. And down below, we got the rudder wires. Does that focus? So everything's all hooked up. I set the throws, and we'll just grab the radio, and I'll show you. So, let's see, start from this end. So you can see if I work the rudder, works the tiller, the wires, moving in the cockpit, and there goes the rudder. And that's full throw. I got 30 degrees. I have triple H set up so you get 30 degrees, 25 degrees, 20 degrees, with varying amounts of expo. Probably mostly fly on the lowest rates and only use the high rates for steering on the ground. Same thing with the elevators. So again, I'll show you the elevator now, and you're going to see tiller arm, the wires moving in the cockpit, and then the elevator. And you'll notice everything's crisscrossed and I got the dual wires, but I think I got the tensions pretty good, so nothing's going slack. And that took a lot of trial and error. And pretty much aligned on both sides, nice and straight, close enough. We'll have to double check that after it's covered. The elevator, use my trusty little 3D Pro angle gauge. You can see it goes up to 90 degrees. I don't actually use it. Well, on my 3D planes I use 50, but we don't do that here. So for the elevator, I did set up for 20 degrees a throw on a high rate. I only expect to use that for ground handling to hold the tail down when I'm taxiing. Again, that's on triple rates as well. So my middle is 12 degrees and the low is 8. I think 8's all we're going to need for flying, and I got a lot of expo mixed into that as well. So that's, you know, flying. Here's if you wanted to have a little fun in the air. And this is, you know, taxiing, and I just want to give it a blast to the prop and keep the tail down. One nice thing is using those tiller arms let me keep the resolution. I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's see endpoints. So you can see with plus and minus 30 degrees of throw in the rudder, I'm still using like 106, 115 points of travel. And on the elevators, for my 20 degrees, I'm still using like 80 points. So even in the air at low rates, it's using about 60% of the travel range of the servo, which is pretty good. So we're keeping some good resolution. Versus, I suspect, if you had set this up for the stock rates in the manual, only giving you 8 degrees of rudder, and just ran it right off the servo horn, you'd probably have to turn your endpoints down to like 20% or something, and you'd lose all the resolution. Got way more power than I need. I know everybody's going to say, why do I got a 5645 in the elevator? But it's what I had in my box. It was free. Well, I paid for it a long time ago. So that's it. We got pulls on the tail. I think this is one of the trickiest things I was avoiding doing, but it actually worked out okay. Now the tricky part is going to be all the cutouts where the wires come through the fabric. So thanks for watching. Bye.